Every night, he told himself the same sentence. Tomorrow I will start. Tomorrow he would wake up earlier. Tomorrow he would work out. Tomorrow he would fix his life. But tomorrow kept moving. At 34 years old, he wasn't lazy. He worked 9 hours a day at a warehouse, earning around $2,400 a month. He paid his rent. He showed up on time. From the outside, everything looked fine. But inside, something was quietly falling apart. Because he knew the truth. He had no discipline. He couldn't follow through. He started things and stopped halfway. He made plans and broke them within days. And the scariest part was not failure. It was this thought that kept him awake at night. What if nothing changes 5 years from now? What if he was still the same person, with the same habits, living the same life, feeling the same regret? Most people think discipline takes years to build. But what if that is completely wrong? What if there was a simple shift, a small window of time that could start building discipline faster than anything else? Today, I want to tell you the story of one man who discovered a 5 a.m. secret that changed everything. Not overnight, not magically, but faster than he ever thought possible. And here is the part most people miss. The real secret is not waking up early. So before we begin, I want to ask you one thing. What time did you wake up today? His name was Daniel. He lived in a small apartment on the edge of a quiet town. One room, a thin mattress on the floor, a second-hand table with scratches across the surface, and a flickering lamp that buzzed every night after 10 p.m. The rent was $850 a month, which meant most of his paycheck was already gone before he even bought groceries. Daniel worked at a warehouse about 20 minutes away. His shift started at 8 a.m. and ended at 5 p.m. But most days he stayed late, not because he loved the job, but because going home felt empty. Every day looked the same. Wake up at 7:30, rush through a quick shower, grab cheap coffee for $2 on the way, clock in, move boxes, scan labels, repeat. By the time he got home, he was too tired to think, so he didn't. He would sit on his bed, scroll through his phone, watch other people's lives moving forward. Fitness transformations, business success stories, morning routines that started at 5 a.m. He saved a few videos, even wrote down ideas in a notebook once. But nothing lasted, because every time he tried to change, the same pattern repeated. Day 1 felt exciting. Day 2 felt uncomfortable. Day 3, he was back to his old habits. Daniel told himself a story. I just need motivation. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true, because motivation came and went like the weather. Some days it was there. Most days it wasn't. What he really lacked was something much harder to face. Control. Control over his time. Control over his actions. Control over himself. And the longer he ignored it, the heavier it became. It wasn't just about waking up late anymore. It was about a growing feeling that he was slowly losing direction in his own life. And that quiet frustration was about to turn into something much more dangerous. At first, Daniel tried to ignore it. He told himself it was just a phase, that everyone felt stuck sometimes, that things would eventually get better on their own. But they didn't. 3 years passed, and almost nothing changed. His savings account hovered around $1,200. Some months it went up by $100. Other months, it dropped back down after an unexpected bill, a broken phone, a medical check, a late fee he forgot to pay. It felt like running on a treadmill that never stopped. His body started to feel it too. Back pain from lifting boxes all day, constant fatigue, even after 8 hours of sleep, a strange heaviness every morning, like waking up was already a loss. But the worst part was not physical, it was mental. Every time he saw someone his age moving forward, getting promoted, starting a business, building something of their own, he felt smaller, not jealous, just left behind. One night, Sitting alone in his dim apartment, Daniel opened his old notebook, the one where he had written goals months ago. Wake up early, learn a new skill, save $5,000. None of it happened, and for the first time, a thought hit him harder than anything before. What if this is it? What if this is how the next 5 years look? Same job, same routine, same excuses. That thought stayed with him longer than any motivation ever had. And here is the part nobody expects. The problem was not his job. It was not his environment. It was not even his lack of time. It was the fact that he could not trust himself to follow through. Until one morning, something finally broke. That morning did not feel special. There was no sudden inspiration, no powerful speech, no dramatic moment, just an alarm. 5 a.m. Daniel opened his eyes, stared at the ceiling, and felt the familiar urge to turn it off. Just 10 more minutes. That was the pattern. That was always the beginning of failure. But this time, something was different. Not motivation, not excitement, just exhaustion. Not from work, not from lack of sleep, but from repeating the same life over and over again. He sat up slowly. The room was still dark. The air was cold. His body felt heavy, like it was resisting every movement. For a few seconds, he just sat there, doing nothing. Then he made a decision, not to change his life, not to become successful, not to fix everything. Just one simple rule: stay awake. No phone, no plan, no pressure. Just stay awake for the next 60 minutes. He walked to the small table, poured a glass of water, and sat down. For the first time in years, the world was quiet. No noise, no rush, no expectations, just him and time. At first, it felt pointless. He did not know what to do with that hour, but something inside him shifted, because for once, he was not reacting to the day. He was starting it. And that small difference felt powerful. But waking up at 5 a.m. was not the real solution. In fact, most people fail right here, because they focus on the time and completely miss the system. A few days later, Daniel mentioned his new 5 a.m. habit at work. He expected people to laugh. Most of them did. Give it a week, one coworker said. You'll be back to normal. But one man did not laugh. His name was Carl. Carl was in his early 60s, worked the early shift, and had been at the warehouse longer than anyone else. He was not rich. He drove an old pickup truck, wore the same worn jacket every winter, and rarely spoke unless necessary. But there was something different about him. Calm, steady, in control. That morning, Carl simply said, 5 a.m. doesn't change anything unless you know what to do with it. Daniel paused. That sentence stayed with him. The next day, he asked Carl what he meant. Carl did not give a speech. He gave a system. Simple, clear, no motivation talk. Discipline is built through repeatable actions, Carl said, not feelings. Then he handed Daniel a small piece of paper. On it was a checklist. The 5 a.m. discipline system. Wake up. Sit up immediately. No snooze. Drink water. No phone for 30 minutes. Do one small physical task. Move your body. Work on one skill for 25 minutes. Timer on. Write one clear goal for the day. Finish one tiny task before leaving. That's it? Daniel asked. Carl nodded. Most people try to change their whole life. That's why they fail. Daniel looked at the list again. No complicated routines. No long morning rituals. No unrealistic expectations. Just actions. Measurable. Repeatable. Hard to avoid. Carl added one more thing before walking away. Don't aim for perfect mornings. Aim for completed ones. That sentence hit differently, because for years, Daniel had been chasing the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect version of himself. And that is why he never started or never continued. Now, the rule was different. Do the list, no matter how it feels. At first, it looked too simple to work. But that simplicity was exactly what made it dangerous. The first morning with the system felt harder than expected. 5 a.m. Alarm rings. Daniel sat up immediately, just like the first rule said, but his body resisted. His eyes burned. His head felt heavy. Every instinct told him to lie back down. Still, he followed the list. He drank water. He stayed away from his phone. He did 10 push-ups, then stopped at 6 because his arms gave out. It was not impressive, but it was done. Day 2 was worse. He woke up late. 5:18 a.m. For a moment, he thought, I already failed. That was the old pattern. Miss once, quit completely. But this time, he remembered Carl's words. Completed, not perfect. So he did the checklist anyway. Shorter, messier, imperfect, still done. By the end of the first week, something subtle changed. Not his results, not his life, but his resistance. Waking up still felt uncomfortable, but not impossible. The 2 5-minute focus block became easier. His mind stopped wandering as much. He started learning basic digital skills from free online videos. Simple things, spreadsheets, inventory tracking, small tools he never had the patience to study before. Nothing dramatic, just progress. Week 2. He noticed something strange. He no longer needed to convince himself every morning. He just followed the list. No debate, no negotiation. Action came before emotion, and that changed everything, because for years, Daniel had been waiting to feel ready. Now, he moved first, but something strange started to happen. The effects of that 1 hour began to leak into the rest of his day. At work, he was slightly more focused. He made fewer mistakes scanning items. He started finishing small tasks instead of delaying them. Even his evenings changed. Instead of scrolling for hours, he felt a quiet pressure to maintain the streak he had started in the morning. Not motivation, momentum. By the 3rd week, Daniel had completed 17 out of 21 mornings. Not perfect, but consistent. And for the first time in years, he trusted himself a little more. Not because he changed his life, but because he kept a promise. Then came the moment that would test everything. The opportunity came quietly. No big announcement, no dramatic build-up, just a conversation. One afternoon, Daniel's supervisor walked up to him and said, "We've been having issues with inventory errors again. Missing items, wrong counts. It's costing us money." Daniel nodded. That was nothing new. But then came the sentence that changed everything. "We need someone to help fix it. Temporary role, more responsibility, slight pay increase." "You interested?" For a second, Daniel froze. This was the kind of chance he used to think about and avoid, because it meant pressure. It meant expectations. It meant the risk of failing in front of others. Old Daniel would have said, "I'll think about it," which really meant no. But now, something was different. Not confidence, not certainty, just a quiet voice. "You've been preparing for this." He said yes. The next morning, the test began. 5 a.m. The alarm rang, louder than usual in the silence of his room. His body felt heavier than ever. His mind started negotiating again. "You need sleep. This is too much. You can skip just today." This was the real test. Not the job, not the responsibility, but whether he would break the system or follow it. He sat up, slow, tired, uncertain, but he followed the list. Water, no phone, movement, 2, 5-minute focus. That morning, instead of random learning, he focused on one thing: inventory systems, basic tracking methods, simple spreadsheets, how to organize data clearly. Nothing advanced, but enough to start. At work, the pressure hit immediately. Confused records, boxes in the wrong sections, numbers that did not match reality. It looked overwhelming. For a moment, doubt returned. This is too big. But then he did something different. He did not try to fix everything. He applied the same rule he had followed every morning. One small task, He picked one section, one category, one problem, and he fixed that, then the next, then the next. Day by day, the system improved. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently. After 3 weeks, something changed. The error rate dropped. The system became clearer. The chaos started to make sense. One afternoon, the supervisor called him in. He expected criticism. Instead, he heard, "We've never seen it this organized before." A week later, the temporary role became permanent. His pay increased by $300 a month. Not life-changing money, but something more important changed. Daniel was no longer the man who tried. He was the man who followed through. And that identity was built at 5 a.m. because the real secret was never about waking up early. It was about proving to yourself every single day that you do what you said you would do. Most people believe discipline comes from motivation, that you need to feel ready, that you need energy, that you need the right moment. But Daniel's story proves something much simpler. Motivation is unreliable. Feelings change. Energy fades. Discipline is built differently. It starts with one controlled action. That action creates a small win. That win builds trust. That trust becomes identity. And identity drives behavior. That is the chain. Not big goals. Not perfect plans. Just repeated proof. Every morning Daniel woke up at 5 a.m. He was not changing his life. He was sending himself a message. I follow through. And over time, that message became real. Here is the truth most people miss. Waking up at 5 a.m. is not magic. You can wake up at 7 a.m. and still build discipline. You can wake up at 6 a.m. and still fail. The time is not the secret. The system is. The checklist, the repetition, the refusal to negotiate with yourself. That is what builds discipline fast. So here is a simple challenge. Tomorrow morning, do not try to change your life. Just take 1 hour, follow a small system, and complete it. Then repeat, and watch what happens after 7 days. Now I want to hear from you. What is one small action you will commit to tomorrow morning? And if you want more stories like this, subscribe so you do not miss the next one.